Hey y'all, welcome to On the Way Home, where I share intimate stories, conversations, and scenes from my everyday life here in Oman. In this episode, I'll be reaching back in memory to that awkward and unsteady time between graduating college and starting my full-time job. Let's go back to 2020, when I was a senior university student. I was very excited to emerge into this thing called adulthood. I was joyfully planning my last summer break with friends while applying to different jobs and fellowships, and I was daydreaming a lot. I couldn't stop imagining what each opportunity would look like. Would I be working at a communications agency? Maybe land a radio fellowship? What about corporate? Would I want to stay in the US or would I want to go back to Oman? All these questions begged exciting possibilities, but all that excitement turned into chronic stress as COVID put a pause or plainly canceled 70% of the opportunities I was daydreaming about. The class of 2020 as a whole graduated into a really tough job market. And when it came to work, everything seemed suspended for me, along with the status of adulthood that I was yearning for. Feeling defeated and bubbling with stress, I moved back to Oman hoping for things to get better. From my hometown, I started job hunting, which moved slowly to my liking, and with no school assignments to keep me busy, I was aching to find a job or an internship to occupy my time. So, I invited someone who played a pivotal role during that time in my life and helped change it. So when I was thinking and reflecting about this whole thing and what even kind of encouraged me, like I needed that just small little nudge, I remembered you and being like, wait, it would be really great to have, my first employer to come in here and just to catch up with him. What have you been up to?
I feel old when you say like I'm your first employer.
That's Habib. He's a marketing specialist and a passionate entrepreneur. I got to work with him remotely as a freelancer back in October of 2020. As I mentioned earlier, before I found this freelance gig online, I felt like I was losing in so many areas of life. And I desperately wanted a win at something. And even though it was part-time, that job was the win I needed. And by the way, Habib is only a year older than me. He's a Muscat native, and by the time we connected, he'd been working here for almost a year. After 2 or 3 months of working with him, I finally secured a full-time job and already made my move to Muscat. In hindsight, I didn't wait too long after graduating college till I started working, which is something I'm really grateful for. But going through the motions of it back then, being unemployed with no reliable income was tormenting. So I felt immensely grateful for that first job with Habib and the company he was working for. In the studio, as I was telling him how important that job was, it dawned on me that I never knew why he needed to hire a freelancer to begin with, and he told me what things looked like from his side.
To be honest, going back to that, likewise, Sarah, you helped me a lot because that was one of the hardest times that I had in my job, to be honest.
Oh, tell me more.
We were basically a sales organization, right? So during that time, I think a month prior to me hiring you, we had it was getting crazy with the old KPIs and meeting deadlines and closing like deals. You had certain amount of deals that you had to close by the end of the year. Other than me working in sales, I also used to do marketing. So having these both things happening at the same time was driving me nuts, صراحة. And that's when I went to my manager and I told her, hey, listen, this is not gonna work. Okay, I'm not gonna meet my KPIs. If, for example, I don't hire a freelancer or someone to just take some of the weight away. And then she was like, okay, fair enough, fine. If we're happy you want to do that, go ahead, Danny. That's where you came in.
Whoa. I hope I helped you achieve the KPIs.
You did a very good job, honestly. Like, I was surprised someone could do, the job as well as you did it, to be honest. Up until now, I remember whenever, I have a conversation with anyone, about the job responsibilities that you had, I would always say, man, you'd always come to my mind, and I was like, والله صراحة you'd always come to my mind, and I'm always like, oh, Like she did a great job with that. Like she's
Oh, that's so good to hear. Thank you.
SubhanAllah, يعني it was a very small amount of time وكذا بس made a huge impact يعني on me personally and
for me definitely, for sure. Even though it's been more than 2 years since I had that job, I enjoyed knowing the story behind it and how it came about. I was so frazzled back then, I didn't bother to understand why the job got outsourced to a freelancer. At any rate, after I started my full-time job, I ran into Habib a few times around Muscat, but at some point, he just disappeared, and we didn't see each other for the better part of a year. When was the last time we saw each other?
When was the last time we saw each other?
This week, random pop-up.
I think that was the last time, right? Because I can't remember. Are you sure we met? Yes. Was it Suika? Because when I moved to Dubai...
Oh, you made the move to Dubai. Well, that explains why I didn't run into Habib anymore. Moving out of the country had to do the trick. From the last time I met him, I knew there was a lot for Habib in Oman. He was engaged and in the middle of planning his wedding with his fiancée, who was also working in the city. In fact, a good chunk of their families and friends had jobs and deeply rooted lives here. Not to mention his entrepreneurial business, Tasket, which he co-founded and ran in Muscat too. I vaguely knew about Dubai, but I was surprised to learn that he actually made the move.
So I made the move to Dubai and then I came back because I had a job change and, I got married and everything that comes with it, right? So I think moving back to Oman was the right decision to make. But I stayed in Dubai تقريبا, I think around 8 to 10 months roughly.
8 to 10 months, okay.
Yeah, I stayed there. But I used to come and go back more frequently because, with Tasket and everything that happens in here. So I had to kind of come back and go there every now and then.
I know a lot can happen in a year, but it felt like 5 years worth of events happened in this 1 year of his life. Habib was an acquaintance at best. I didn't know him personally, but he made such a positive impact in my life during a really stressful time. Like I said, the gig itself was a win, and to top it off, his professionalism and kindness went a long way. And now that we're catching up, I wanted to get a better sense of his personality through those major life updates.
SubhanAllah, today morning, I was when I woke up, I was like, man, I kind of missed the Dubai life, There's some, يعني, الvibe شوي في Dubai is different than in Oman,
How so?
I don't know how to say it, but في Dubai, يعني, you feel like you're more into a professional working life. So the social aspect in Dubai is kind of missing. In Oman, we're a very social culture, Everyone knows each other. You sit with one guy and he tells you a bit of history about himself. And then suddenly you see, subhanAllah, and, he knows one of your closest friends. The culture in Oman is completely different than Dubai. In Dubai, I remember even when going to work, مثلا, to the office, there are not much connections happening. Yani, you don't talk to your work colleagues a lot. And sometimes you don't even know who they are. Okay, there's a new person joining. They sit there, but you don't know their name, what they do, where they're from. And Oman, the situation is completely different. If there's someone you'd eventually, if you're on the same floor office, for example, you would 100% know him, right? We'd walk, say hi, you would go into deep conversations. That didn't happen in Dubai. Maybe because of our company culture, but I can't say for sure.
You must be wondering, why did Habib make that move to begin with? The company Habib worked for had an office in Muscat, but due to the small number of employees and a few other reasons, the company asked the Oman crew to join the bigger and more established office in Dubai. That's how Habib ended up moving to Dubai, which complicated a lot of things in his personal life, which we'll hear more about later on. But for now, I was wondering, after experiencing 2 very different work cultures, did he prefer one culture over the other?
I prefer Oman's culture, to be honest. Gives you energy that you need, when... أنا مثلا من الناس اللي, okay, I'll wake up. I'll stay quiet until I meet a person to talk to, يعني. And then the whole energy comes in. يعني فاهمة خلاص أبدأ أتنشط I get ready for the day I get really excited for the rest of the day وكذا. When I sit quiet for a long time, it's like, man, I feel like شوية depressed يعني what am I, what am I alone doing nothing, just working. It's boring. That's why I hate working from home as well. I like going to the office a lot because there are people to speak to. يعني. That's one of the reasons when I used to work in IFS, I went to Arudha. I used to go there and to meet, I know people in Arudha, I speak with them. We have a little chit chats here and there. That was fun. But when I used to go back to Dubai, it was completely the opposite. And I'm like, man, I think I need a career change.
Habib's reflection about himself brought back some memories, including my first impression of him. I do remember thinking that he seemed to be a very quiet and calm person, perhaps even an introvert who prefers to be by himself rather than around people. But as he accurately described himself, I remember how his quiet demeanor would shift and become more active and chatty as we continued working. Seeing this in his personality encouraged me to ask him about a few things that occupied my mind. What was it like to live in Muscat after studying abroad? How did he adapt to those changes socially and professionally? What was it like to job hunt in this market? And so on. Equipped with over a year of experience, he was very generous in sharing his journey and giving general tips. It might seem small, but in the middle of the stress I was feeling, coupled with my tendency to overplan things, having a peer shed some knowledge eased some of the anxiety I felt about this new place I'd be moving to. At any rate, while I was steadily finding my footing in Muscat, Habib was in Dubai, trying to figure out his next step. He continued traveling between Dubai and Muscat to spend time with family, figure out the wedding arrangements, and manage his business while applying and interviewing for jobs in Oman. It seemed like his plate of decisions couldn't get any fuller. Okay, so it sounds like it was a stressful time, but not necessarily negative stress per se.
Exactly. There were so many decisions that I had to take. On task, on what I'm supposed to do. Like, how would I go about my life? Being now in Dubai, should I make this career change? So many questions were looming around in my mind. So I thought, okay, what's the best way to think and, think about and make a proper decision on all of these things? I was like, okay, I need a proper trip away from my phone and somewhere where no one, there's no connection, no, like in the middle of the desert, like I want to go far away from everything that I have in Oman, just take a step back and think about all these decisions that I have to make.
For that distance, Habib joined an organized trip in Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, where he was surrounded by new people who had nothing to do with his life or Oman. Before getting on the plane, though, Habib went to the close people in his life to hear their different perspectives and think out loud. On the trip, he continued to contemplate his decisions. Do you remember when those decisions or these options became clear to you, what you should do during that trip?
Yes, that was even very interesting because the whole thing came to me when I was on a bus. We were moving from one city to another, and it was like a 4 or 5 hours long. And I made كنا خذيت عهد على نفسي إنه on this journey, on this trip اللي 4 or 5 hours road trip, I'll make the final decision وخلاص So I remember keeping the اللي هو blinds in the bus open and just looking outside and thinking. I had my headphones in and I was just thinking like literally through the whole thing for the whole 5 hours.
Oh, wow.
In the middle of it, خلاص, I was like, okay, I think I'm going with this. And I remember I was texting my friends وكذا, and this is what I'm gonna do.
And just like that, with the help of distance, a silent bus ride, and the occasional conversation with the people he met, Habib made 3 major decisions. He accepted the new job in Muscat, continued operating his small business, and, to the dying curiosity of his new friends, he got married after moving back. So you told the people you were on the trip about this and they were really invested to know what you're going to
do. Up until the last day, they kept asking me what are you going to do. I'm like, guys, please chill out. Like, I have no idea.
Did they text you afterwards about it?
Yeah, one of them even attended my wedding.
Oh!
Yeah, he was a German guy, a Polish who lives in Germany now.
That's exciting.
Yeah, he's still in touch. Now he's in Melbourne, and you know, where I studied in Australia. And he takes photos of my, he kept sending me the photos of my university and the city and everything. So we're still in touch. That was an exciting trip, صراحة. Like, most of the people that were there, to be honest, they were one of the best people you could meet on a trip صراحة. Everyone was very kind. They were very supportive. اللي هو حتى like a team spirit عندهم. It was a great trip صراحة.
Habib's retelling of this period of his life put the past version of him into more context. While he initially seems very quiet, Habib is incredibly adaptable and practical in the face of changes. Plus, he is incredibly social and easy to connect with. All of those traits fed into the professionalism he carried with him during that brief work experience, which was very pivotal for the older Fatema of 2020. Back then, chronically stressed Fatema was a very cynical and an alarmed person. I was constantly thinking of the worst-case scenario and planning for it, which was helpful for a while, but it got draining. I only started to relax when I got that part-time job, and I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that I cried after my first interview with Habib. I didn't even get the job yet. I was just grateful that he responded faster than any place I applied to. When I did start working, relief slowly came to me and grew throughout the job. I felt like I could move on, indulge the hopeful daydreaming I used to do before COVID, and shape the adulthood I wanted for myself. As our conversation progressed, we caught up some more. He told me about his passion for entrepreneurship, and I told him about the show and how it came about, and we shared some of our future career aspirations. It was nice to get to know him as a person, and I hope this episode inspires you to connect and express your gratitude for people like Habib. They're those characters that come into our lives for a brief amount of time, but leave a deeply positive impact without ever knowing how much it meant to you. I'm really grateful for that first job, because it enabled me to move on, and in a lot of ways, it connected me to this show, where I get to reflect on the accumulating events that helped me feel more at home. If you didn't tell me during this interview you were in Dubai, I would never have guessed that you left and came back. I don't think that you put anything on your social media, so there wasn't any passive information for me to consume besides the Kyrgyzstan trip and the random Tasket post every now and then.
They're very random, right?
On the Way Home is brought to you by Oman FM. This show is available for streaming on all podcast platforms. This episode was hosted and produced by me, Fatema Dinari, and you can follow me on Instagram at Fatema's Eyes, Fatemas Eyes. Sound engineered by Azam Al Raisi. Thank you for listening.